Hi, I'm Jim Shallow with the Nature Conservancy, and we're here at Burnt Mountain today. Burnt Mountain is a 5,000 acre preserve, and we're so excited to be participating with Blue Source and One Tree Planted because this is the largest carbon project that has been developed in our state to date. The carbon here that is being sold will help fund the conservation of additional forest land, but it's also helping support this important property where we now have a forest that will be forever wild. It will be allowed to grow into the future and become an old growth forest. Wildlife like moose, neotropical migratory birds like black-throated blue warblers will continue to thrive here, and the people of Vermont will be able to continue to come out here and hike and hunt and fish and enjoy all those traditional recreational activities that Vermonters love. So Burnt Mountain is located in Montgomery and Belvedere, which is in northern Vermont in the northern Greens. It's in the heart of what we consider a resilient and connected network of forest lands. As we put more carbon into the atmosphere, things are warming up and nature is on the move. Species are moving by about 11 miles northward each decade and 36 feet higher in elevation. So they're trying to adjust to this warming climate. And places like Burnt Mountain, which is embedded in a matrix forest of 11,000 acres of preserved and conserved land. Wildlife will be able to persist in a warming climate here, as well as new critters and wildlife that's moving into the state as things warm up will be able to move through this landscape as well. So it's a vitally important part of the Nature Conservancy's goal to conserve a resilient and connected network of lands across North America. Carbon is making this project possible because we have changed the management here. This was a land that has been harvested and reharvested over the last century. And so we've inherited a property here that has had a history of poor management. And we believe that by allowing nature now to take over, it's going to be able to restore itself. And that change from having a managed working forest here to one that is a forever wild forest is creating additional carbon that's going to be pulled out of the atmosphere, stored in all the trees here, and is going to allow us as a society to help address climate change. And at the Nature Conservancy, we call this type of project a natural climate solution. We acquired this property in 2018. It was a multi-million-dollar acquisition. So carbon's going to allow us to help pay off some of the debt that we took on to acquire this property, but it's also going to allow us to build up an endowment to manage this property going forward. And ultimately, hopefully, if we've done our math right, the income that we're receiving from the carbon project will allow us to do additional forest conservation work around the state of Vermont. We just don't have a lot of dollars to protect forests in Vermont, and yet it's our biggest natural resource here, and it's one where we're seeing increasing fragmentation from development. We're seeing, for the first time in over 100 years, the forest cover in Vermont is declining. So we see a need to do more forest protection in the state of Vermont, and this project will help us have the assets to do that. You know, one of the frequent questions that we receive at the Nature Conservancy is, how do you count up the amount of carbon in a forest? And how do you come to the calculations that allow you to say you're storing or sequestering the amount of carbon that we think we are here? So it's a complicated process, but very simply what we do is we do a survey of the forest. We put out a grid of plots. We permanently mark those plots with an iron bar so we can keep coming back to them over time. And then from that center point where the plot is, we measure the trees going out about 50 meters in a big circle. So we'll measure the size of the tree. We'll bore into the tree to count the rings in there so we can see not only how old the trees are, but actually how fast they're growing. We also look at how high the trees are and how healthy is the canopy. And then from there, depending on the type of tree, the species of the tree that we've measured, there are tables that calculate how much carbon that individual tree will store. And then we add all that up. And so for each one of those plots, it represents about 30 acres of forest. And then we run statistics and we add that up over the property, and that tells us how much carbon is actually being stored on the property. And then we are able to say from that how much carbon we're going to be able to issue in credits. So after we've done all the survey work that we've done, the inventory of the carbon out here, people don't just take our word for it. We have others come in and check the work. So we have a third-party auditor come in. This is an independent body, and they look at all of the work that we've done in the inventory. And then they check that work. And then they go out in the field with us, and we take a random sample of plots across the property, and we redo the whole measurement with the auditors. And the auditors do their numbers, and they compare them to the numbers that we showed them. And then, they look, and if it's all meshes up, that plot passes muster. And we do that over and over on a small set of those. And then they verify all the work. So when they see that we've passed all the field work, then they go back and look at all the back-end work. So the calculations that Blue Source has done through their modeling for how much carbon credits there, what the baseline is, and they check all that as well. They go through, they interview people, they interview local experts, they look at the markets here, and it all, they all verify that. Then once they've done their work, they share that with the registry. In this case, our credits are being issued through the American Carbon Registry. And the American Carbon Registry then evaluates all of that work as well. And then once they're happy with all of that, they issue the credits. So there are multiple points in this where work is checked and everything is transparent. When you are buying a carbon credit from Burnt Mountain, what you're really buying is a piece of this forest and the future. It's a future where biodiversity thrives and humanity has a way forward in the face of climate change. It's 5,400 acres of pristine forest that we have developed in cooperation with Blue Source, and we're excited to have one tree planted, purchasing our first issuance of carbon.